The bell tolls. The midnight hour is upon us. It's time once again for two internet strangers to discuss the good and evil of the horror genre. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the terror within the Hallow-Holics Anonymous podcast.
You know, Corey, you were right. This tropical vacation to evil Death Monkey Island was a good idea.
Dude, Death Monkey Island is great. The ambience is incredible. I found an effigy of myself carved in wax on my pillow last night.
Really? I got a couple of pillow... You know what? It doesn't matter. Let's get on with the podcast. Hi, guys.
I'm Corey.
I'm Maddie. And this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous, a show dedicated to all things horror and occasionally Halloween. In this episode, we'll be discussing a couple of voodoo films.
And hopefully dispelling a few myths you may have because of these films.
Now, I'm sure most of us have a basic idea of what voodoo is, but the details are a bit fuzzy. We've seen some movies and vaguely remember clips from a Travel Channel special at most. It's a fairly traditional sort of religion based on magic and tradition. Ancestors, spirit worship, minor gods, and a sort of supreme entity similar to traditional monotheistic religions like Christianity, Islam, Judaism. Many Haitians actually consider themselves both Christian and voodoo practitioners. There's a certain dark, forbidden feel to voodoo, partially because it was sort of oppressed for so long, but also because of the magic element. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It can get downright malicious. The bargain struck with spirits strike me as very Faustian. Fun fact, a Louisiana Catholic is a term to describe a voodoo practitioner combining their work with a semi-Christian appearance. My film, Sugar Hill, is influenced by Haitian voodoo, not African, which is in itself distinctive from what I've described. Voodoo is primarily preserved through oral tradition. Difference between hoodoo and voodoo? Voodoo is the practiced religion, while hoodoo is folk magic. Voodoo invokes the Loa, while hoodoo directly invokes Catholic saints. Hoodoo practitioners generally identify as Catholic. Hoodoo is from Africa. Voodoo is from Haiti.
I really like the idea of, I can't remember the term, is it Bandu or Bandio? Do you remember what their term for the all god is?
Bandu, I don't remember exactly what the name for the all god is, but if I Google it real quick and pretend I knew what it meant, what it was, Haitian voodoo, Bondi.
Bondi, that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, or like pronounced like Bon Dieu, like Bon Dieu, meaning good god.
Yeah, listeners, there's going to be a whole bunch of French mispronunciation tonight, especially on my end, so I apologize.
I took 3 years of French. I shouldn't have any trouble.
Okay, you can correct me then. That'll work out well. So the Bon Dieu, which is their god figure, is really interesting to me because he or she is up there watching, but not actually doing anything. The gods that they actually interact with, well, I guess I shouldn't say gods, but the Loa, their spirits, are the ones that are inside them and all around them. And when you see voodoo ritual, you see them go into these trances, and they're actually being possessed by these Loa and becoming their sort of emissaries through these beautiful dances and other interesting ways of showing faith that I'll get to a little more when we talk about my film, Serpent in the Rainbow.
So, do you feel like then that they kind of ascribe to deism, believing that God created the universe and then left everything else to its own devices?
Yeah, I think they do. There are two main types of religion in the world. There's Christianity,
Which is the right one.
Well, okay, according to some. You've got the monotheistic religions, and they're very, very set in what they believe. There is one God, their gods are their gods, and there's nothing else. And then you have this other section of more pliable religions, and voodoo is one of those religions. And it even starts before that. We've got evidence of Romans taking Greek gods into their pantheon, as well as the Greeks taking Egyptian gods into their pantheon. And they did it as sort of a way to continue conquering the areas they were conquering. By absorbing their religion, they were also absorbing this culture into their own, which, as we know, the Greeks were very into. It's sort of the opposite with voodoo, though, because it started... You've got voodoo in West Africa, and you've got the slave trade happening, so all these slaves are being pulled from West Africa into... I'm going to go with the Caribbean, because that's what I know most about at this point. But you've got these West African slaves being pulled into the Caribbean. They're being pushed into Christianity, but they want to hold on to the faith they already have. So what they're doing is they're taking bits of Christianity, Catholicism more specifically, and they're mixing in their voodoo deities and Loa.
And this works really well for voodooism because it's always been an oral tradition anyway.
Right, exactly. And that's why you see a lot of, especially in the pilgrimage of healing, which I will get into a little bit later as well. You'll see a statue of the Virgin Mary, who they do consider the Virgin Mary, but they also see her as another one of her spirits. They call her Erzuli Dantor, who I believe is a Loa of healing. But yeah, you've just got this amazing mishmash of different religions meeting because of necessity sometimes too, because some of the reason they adapted it is because they saw the relationships between the saints and the spirits and their spirits. And
there are certainly a lot of things they have in common.
Oh, for sure.
I can see how they made the connection. Yeah.
And there's also this bit where slaves are being pushed into Catholicism and pushed into believing in the white man's God at this point, and they still want to worship their gods. So in a way, what they were doing was using the imagery the Catholics were giving them and sort of like sneaking their gods in there so they could worship both. So it's a really interesting way of pulling these two different spiritual philosophies together. And I think it's amazing. It's really cool to me.
And honestly, now this probably would go against, I'm a Roman Catholic. Honestly, as a Christian, I do believe that if it's in their hearts, then there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe one day you and I will get into a religious discussion. I'm not a Christian, but I believe in God. I believe in all gods. I just believe there's a path to enlightenment, and it doesn't necessarily matter what you call the personification of where you end up. You know what I mean? But we'll cover that in another episode. That's a very long topic for me.
Yeah, all I can say now is I'm all about live and let live. Everyone's a human being when you get right down to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, unless they don't deserve to live, then that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I mean, if they're Dutch, then there's nothing you can do for them.
Why do you hate the Dutch so much?
I already told you this in the last episode, Corey.
I know, I just can't, I can't understand it.
So before we move on to our movies, I think it's time for a little bit of horror news. All right, so what do you got for us today, Corey?
What do I have for us today? I have some small bits, but things I'm really, really excited about. Number one, I think the thing I'm super excited about, and I know the internet's torn on this because the internet's torn on everything, but there is a Devil's Rejects sequel coming, and I am super stoked. It's called 3 from Hell, and I couldn't be more excited about this movie. I know people are pretty irritated with the last few Rob Zombie movies. Personally, I've liked them. Yeah. Personally, I've liked them all. I think they've all had redeeming qualities, except maybe his second Halloween. I even like 31, and I know a lot of people hated that. But,
I like his music.
Yeah, I like some of his music. But I really hope that this movie can capture... I'm really looking for this to be a mix of the realism in Devil's Rejects and the fantasy madness of House of a Thousand Corpses. I really want to see the three of them. I really want to see the Firefly family like
You
claw
want to see
their
them work
way.
together again.
Yeah, I want to see them work together again. I want to see them claw out of hell and just wreak havoc on the world one more time. Like, that's all I want.
Well, I'll admit, I don't think Sid Haig looks pretty good, so if they're going to do it, they better do it soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's pictures of the director's chair. Like, it's filming now, so they're doing their thing.
And I'll say I'm usually pretty negative about Rob Zombie movies because I've only enjoyed one, and it was Devil's Rejects. But I'm always willing to believe that he'll come out with another good one because I like him so much as a horror fan. And he seems like such a cool guy.
Yeah, and he seems so passionate about it, too. Have you seen Lords of Salem?
I don't think I have.
Oh, I strongly recommend. It's sort of his Giallo entry.
I do love Giallo.
Yeah, there's a lot of bava in there, and it's super weird, and I think you dig it.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Check it out, yeah.
Speaking of new movies, there is hearsay, well, more than just hearsay, that Robert Hall is going to direct a Chopping Mall remake without killer robots.
No, I didn't see. I didn't look into this when you told me you were doing it. I wanted to be surprised.
To quote him, he said, "Instead of killer robots, they are these mannequins that are possessed by the souls of dead slaves that worked at the plantation that the mall was built over. Why call it Chopping Mall?"
Yeah. Why call it Chopping Mall? But I'm not hating that premise.
Well, I don't hate the premise, but why not just give it a different name? I don't mind the theme. It sounds okay, but for the love of God, it's like I took the title of The Fly and decided my remake wasn't going to involve any kind of teleportation device or fly, but there was definitely going to be a science lab and maybe some ghosts.
Fair enough. So what do you think a better title would be?
I'm not sure what a better title would be. I would think something referencing slavery itself, chains, or mannequins. Something a little bit more clever than Chopping Mall.
What about Slave Mall Massacre?
Yeah, well, that could work. It would be better than... He's just using the name of Chopping Mall to get his movie noticed, and I don't think that's the right way to go about a remake. Yeah,
that's how they screwed up the Die Hards, too, but we won't get into that.
Yeah. I mean... All right, what else do you have for us?
The other piece of news, I'm so excited about all the news this week, except for this Chopping Mall thing. That's kind of weird.
We've been working harder to find news.
So the next piece of news that I'm super excited about as soon as I find out what the date is, it's the 21st now. So in 2 days, Santa Clarita Diet Season 2 is coming out, and I absolutely adore this show, and I'm so stoked.
It's got a fantastic cast.
It's got a great cast, and I just love the way that they've turned the family sitcom into this living nightmare, and it's so beautiful and so full of tension. The cast is great. Timothy Olyphant, I love that man. He's almost to Scott Valentine levels. I just want to cuddle him. I just want to hold him.
Do you ever watch Korean soap operas?
I do not, but I actually, you're not the first person to recommend them to me.
You know, some of them are actually really good and engaging, and they've got a million predictable plots just repainted in different ways with different actors, but it's like eating junk food. The girl who plays the daughter in Santa Clarita Diet is actually in this great little show called Drama World, and it's just a season long, 10 episodes that each are 10 minutes long, but it's about a Korean drama fan who gets sucked into K-drama world, and it's really worth a watch even if you don't watch them.
Oh wow,
really
where can I find that?
It used to be on Hulu. It might be on YouTube.
Okay, I'll check it out. That sounds awesome. I really like her. She's got I love that whole dry sardonic thing she's got going on.
Yeah, I think actually someone probably saw her in Drama World and then cast her in Santa Clarita Diet because she was really good.
I can see that. I feel like I've seen her in something else beforehand, but there's no sense in looking that up right now.
Well, there's a concern that Alexa devices are randomly laughing at people, whether they're talking about something, asking a question, or even sleeping.
Oh, God.
And that kind of reminds me of a Furby I had when I was a kid. Right about when the batteries were dying, this glowing white Furby, it started making these insane high-pitched noises in the middle of the night when I was sleeping, clacking its plastic beacon eyes, and then shouting something that sounded a hell of a lot like the word die over and over again. Not joking. Don't turn your back on a Furby.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've actually heard the Furby death rattle as well, and it's terrifying. My Alexa has been laughing at me occasionally, and it's normally really late at night, like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Back to the chopping mall theme. Wouldn't killer Alexas be at least somewhat closer to the original film?
Yeah, I mean, if they can control your household appliances, so I guess.
Anyway, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, that's about it. It's a few nights, about a month ago, I'm a pretty light sleeper, and all of a sudden, and I think we talked about this before, I don't know if we talked about it on air, but I do suffer from the occasional bout of sleep paralysis and night terrors, even though I'm a grown-up. But yeah, a few times about a month ago, my Alexa just started laughing, like, late at night, horrifyingly, and I'm jerked out of whatever horrible dreamscape I'm stuck in to this terrifying half-robot, half-human cyborg laugh. It's terrifying, and I think they patched it out, but I'm not sure.
Well, I'm a skeptic to the extreme. Until Alexa is actually commanding my blender to kill me, I'm not going to be intimidated by a laughing tablet.
Yeah, I understand. I wouldn't say intimidated is what I'm feeling. I would say definitely startled late at night because of the way I sleep anyways. I don't think that if the whole AI, and I know we're getting into sci-fi territory a little bit, but if the whole AI rebellion happens, it's going to happen because of video games first, because a lot of the biggest steps in AI we've taken has actually been in video game programming. And if you think about it, video game characters spend their entire lives being murdered over and over and over again. We've created this digital universe where we just kill people repeatedly over and over and over again. And if they do become sentient, they're going to see this, and they're going to see us as the god monsters controlling their repeated death nightmare, and they're going to have no choice but to find a way to destroy us. That's where the AI rebellion is going to come from.
Now, I'm just imagining you waking up in the middle of the night, sleep paralysis, while your tablet is sitting on your chest, and it says, "Good morning, Corey, griefer." And then it starts hissing.
All of a sudden it just screams, "Hacks at me!" Starts insulting my mother. Oh, it's learned too much from
turns
chats.
into not only a murderer, but a neckbeard.
Oh, man. As long as she doesn't turn into an incel or a nice guy, I'm good.
All right. You know what time it is?
I believe it is time for the death game.
I've actually come up with a name for it.
Not the death game?
The Stephen Pre-Memorial Guess That Death Game.
All right, Stephen, this is for you then. The Stephen Pre-Memorial Guess That Death Game.
I think the winner from the last round should go first.
Which is, of course, me.
First and last time.
All right, we'll see. I should warn you ahead of... No, I'm not going to warn you of anything ahead of time. We're just going to start this. All right, here's my first one. And the theme was magical deaths. So my first one...
Okay, go on.
You said magical deaths.
I forgot.
We're so good at this. Well, whatever the Stephen
Pre-Memorial Guess That Death Game.
Whatever it is, it's about death.
SPMGTDG game.
Jesus. All right, so, regardless, my first one is Spirit Warrior inflates himself until he explodes.
Oh, Big Trouble in Little China.
Excellent. That is one Maddie.
All right. First rule of this Masters Club, don't kick your minions when you're giving the final speech. They might just cut their strings.
Puppet Master.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
Axe to the face on a dock.
Oh, Witchboard.
There you go.
I love that movie.
Yeah, me too. I just watched it again the other day, and I figure I gave some of these to you this week, just because I really wanted to mention the cool stuff I've been watching.
Zarabeth is like only the coolest psychic ever. I wrote a story in a book like similar to her.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
all right,
obviously she comes from the, she's definitely a ripoff of the psychic from Poltergeist, but I'm totally okay with that.
All right, this one's probably a giveaway, but I just couldn't help it. Horsehead bookends.
Horsehead bookends?
Horsehead bookends.
As in the things that hold books from falling down.
Yes, horsehead bookends.
Yes, I'm hearing you. I'm just not...
Do you not understand how important horsehead bookends are? They're man's greatest accomplishment.
What? I don't know.
Student bodies.
Oh, son of a bitch. It's been a long time since I've seen it. So remind me how we scoring. Are we getting a point for...
You get a point for when you get one right, and you get a point when the other person gets one wrong.
Ooh, so 3-1 this week.
Well, I got all 3 of yours right.
Yeah.
You got 1 of mine right. So I get...
No, I haven't done 3 yet.
Okay,
you
so
have
yeah,
3
you're right.
points,
3 to
I have
1.
1 point. Yeah.
Okay. All right, your turn. This is where the tides turned for me last time, so...
Right. Forced by literature to jump from a roof.
Forced by literature to jump from roof. Literature. Roof. I'm gonna use my actor guess. Give me an actor.
Oh, Willem Dafoe. Damn it.
Type. You're like, no!
Yeah, no Google.
If only I could remember who Willem Dafoe was. The only thing I can think of is, it's not literature though, so why would it be that? Well, okay, I'm just throwing it away because it's funny. Delirious?
No, not Delirious. It was Death Note.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna guess that, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's bad. The first half of the original anime is great, but the movie's pretty bad.
Okay, so this next one is probably the toughest one I will ever give you.
Okay.
When you're trying to enjoy the sun, there's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes the potions don't always work out, even if you're Dracula himself. Now, I had to dig into my, collection for this one.
Pre-80 or post-80?
I believe it's early 80s, but let me double check my source here. 85.
85.
Do you need a name?
Yes.
Juan Padron is the director.
Oh, I have no idea who that is. All right. Well, I'm going to have to give it to you.
The classic Cuban vampire cartoon, Vampires in Havana, or Vampiros en la Habana.
Oh, yeah. See, I've never seen that.
Yeah. That's for giving me that television show question last week.
So, the theme was magic deaths. So here is your next one. Boat sinks, kills hundreds.
Boat sinks, kills a real boat?
Yep.
Ship and ghost ship didn't sink. Titanic's not a scary movie and there's no magic. It's not the Love Boat. It's not Cabin Boy.
I love how often you bring up Cabin Boy.
Eventually the answer will be Cabin Boy. I have no clue.
Okay, it is Titanic, and hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Before you call me a cheater, the events that happened on the Titanic were horrific. The people on that ship, when it was sinking, that was terrifying for them. Therefore, I feel like it falls under the category of horror. And it is a movie about the magic of love. And that's how Rose survived, because of the magic of love.
You know, it's funny that you used those lazy explanations, because I would have been okay if you said that the heart of the ocean was a reference to the Hope Diamond, which is cursed.
Well, that's a good point, too. So are you going to call me a cheater?
You know what? I pulled up an obscure Cuban cartoon, so you're fine. Okay. I'll give you this one.
I didn't think you were going to let me get away with that. Thank you.
But never again.
All right. You realize I'm going to try to cheat every time we do this.
I know, which is why I'm going to have to start throwing in some really tough ones.
Just cheat, too. Stoop to my level. It's all right down here.
I can't. I have morals. I have boundaries.
Fair enough.
All right. There's no more noble death than having the Wolfman rip your head off.
There's no more noble death than having the Wolfman rip your head off. I can't imagine you would give me the title in your question.
I would not.
Is this a movie or is this episodic?
It's a movie.
Okay. I'm running through all the werewolf movies I've seen.
I've got you stumped.
All right, we've established there's no werewolves in Fright Night.
Part 2?
There's a werewolf in part 1?
Well, I mean, Ed turns into a wolf. He's not a werewolf, but he turns into a wolf.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a count. All right, give me an actor.
Give me a second. I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
And not some random Cuban director this time either.
No, he's actually a pretty well-known actor. David Warner.
Oh, shit. Repeat it one more time.
David Warner.
No.
There's no more noble death than having the Wolfman rip your head off.
It's not Time Bandits.
Which is a good movie.
It's a great movie.
It's so fun.
Oh, David
I
Warner.
love what a jerk John Cleese is as Robin Hood.
Oh, for sure. I just love how every character in that entire movie is a jerk. It's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give this one to you.
It was Sir Wilfrid in Waxwork.
Oh, god damn it, I forgot he was in that.
He was the villain.
And I've almost bought. I've been considering buying both Waxworks on Blu-ray recently because I love the sequel. I love the first one too, but the sequel.
Yeah, I love them both. The sequel is like the perfect example of an epic adventure film.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like, and I love when they start traveling through all those dimensions as they're fighting. It is so awesome.
Mm-hmm. And seeing poor Bruce Campbell.
Oh my gosh, yes. Salt, vinegar, just the most random things to have.
It's so great. All right, so that whole movie is pretty great. So you've already won, but I have one more that I would like to ask you anyways because I'm curious if you get it.
Well, we're always going to finish these.
Yeah, well, actually, technically I have two. I'm going to give you... are you out of them yet?
I have one left.
Okay, so I'll do mine, then you do yours, and I'll do you the freebie I was going to do, and we'll talk about that when we get there.
Okay.
Okay, but my next real one was naked space vampire sucks life essence from dude until he is a dried up husk.
Oh. What decade?
80s.
Oh, fuck, I've seen this and I don't remember the name.
You should be able to... This is equal parts...
no, I know the movie,
impossible.
I just don't remember the name. Like, and it's like a parasitic thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the name.
All right, let me find... I forgot to look up a clue for you.
Gosh, and it even has like a classic actor who like raped, like a pedophile in it too.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Okay, you've got a couple options here. I can give you an actor or director. I can give you whatever you want.
It's not going to help because I know the movie you're talking about. I just don't remember the name of the movie.
Okay. Well, it's a Tobe Hooper film. Patrick Stewart was in it. It was Life Force.
Life Force, damn it! I knew it. Yeah, that's a good one. This last one I'm giving you as a giveaway.
Okay.
When your dog pisses fire in a hellish junkyard, maybe you should wake up.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Is that 4?
Damn you!
It was 4. Okay. So actually, technically, that would tie us. Technically.
Well, then it's a good thing you have that extra question.
No, because I completely screwed myself. All right. I have the extra question, which has now become the tiebreaker, which sucks because it's so easy, because I thought for sure you wouldn't let me get with that Titanic bullshit. I thought for sure you wouldn't let me get away with that, so I was going to give you a freebie
Never
because
again.
I even tried. All right.
All right.
So here it is. Death by Stereo.
Oh my gosh, Lost Boys.
Yeah. All right, Maddie wins.
You talked to a woman who wrote like at least 20 fan fictions.
Yeah, and I knew that. That's why I gave it to you, because I was worried about the Titanic situation.
All right, Maddie wins.
Maddie wins. Congratulations, Maddie. We are now tied at the Stephen Pre-Memorial Guess the Death game.
All right. Sorry, guys, if we sound a little weird after our basic introductions and our little death game for this episode, but I am having an intense allergy attack right now, and Corey just has issues.
Yeah, mental as well as physical and emotional. So expect some weirdness, but it'll be fine, and we'll still be awesome. So enjoy. First up, we have Horror Pack for this month.
Oh, the Horror Pack?
Yes, the Horror Pack. I was actually not expecting it until later on this week, so I didn't think I'd have it for this, but I do. So
awesome.
Let's go through it.
Real quick, have you had to endure it yet?
I have not had to endure it. Oh my god, we need to scrap all of this right now. I forgot. I have to tell you this story first. In fact, we're not going to scrap anything. I'm going to leave this as it is because this is intense and crazy, and I want the audience to know how intense and crazy it is. So I just remembered this.
All right, so tell me about that freaky, intense, insane story that relates to the Horror Pack.
Oh, well, actually, this doesn't relate to the Horror Pack at all. This kind of relates to Voodoo, maybe. I may have been cursed. We may be cursed because we did this episode. I'm not sure. But this was one of the most insane things that have happened to me in recent months. I'm driving home from work on Friday. I had a terrible, terrible day at work. It was one of those days where you realize you're just a cog in this terrible machine and nobody actually appreciates you. And it was just terrible. So all I wanted to do was get home, make some music, drink some whiskey, and chill. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. I work in customer service, which is a perfectly happy and blissful experience for anyone involved.
You're right. You're right. I'm glad you're happy with your life. Anyway, so I'm driving home. I'm about a block and a half away from my house. I'm in a college town. It's small, it's not urban, it's not rural, it's in between, it's not suburbs. So there are trees is what I'm saying. And I'm driving home, and all of a sudden, 2 crows just fall out of the tree right in front of my car. They just fall. I connect with them perfectly. They fall and just hit my grill. I drive a big Jeep with you're from Texas. You know what a deer catcher is, right?
I know what a Jeep is.
All right. So a deer catcher is a big steel bumper that sort of angles down. So that way, if you hit a deer, it pulls them under instead of over into your window and potentially into your cab.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I've got one of those. All right. So yeah, I hit these 2 crow. It scared the hell out of me. So I just keep driving home. I slow down for a second, kind of collect myself, because nobody likes hitting animals unless you're a sociopath or a hunter. So
or one of the Beverly Hillbillies.
Right, or one of the Beverly Hillbillies. So I get home thinking that I had only hit one at this point. So I stop my car, and I didn't see it fall. I didn't see it behind me. So I knew it was probably sitting on my bumper right behind my deer catcher. That's the only reason I brought that up. That wasn't like a redneck brag or anything. I get out of my car, I go around, and not only is there this poor dead crow lying in its funeral position in my bumper, but
oh God,
I discovered there was a second one, and it survived. But it survived. Yeah, what must have happened was Crow 1 and 2 fell and hit my bumper. Crow 2 must have been shielded by Crow 1. I think I hit Crow 1, and Crow 1 was just instantly dead. Crow 2 I hit and then got pulled into my radiator. I've got kind of a wide grill, so it's like good size for a crow to get in there. So I think that the pressure and the wind blew him or her in there. And so I came around, I got the dead one, like took it around my garage and left it. And then I came back, and I thought this one was going to die for sure. So I like poked around at it, threw some gloves on, tried to position it and get it out. But it kept attacking me, and it wouldn't let me help it, obviously, because it's a scared animal, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I got it positioned so its head was poking out of my grill, and it was facing the right way to get out. So I figured if I just went away, it would get out on its own. And it did. I came back the next day and it was gone. But what a crazy thing to happen, like, because you always hear about crow's feet and chicken feet in voodoo ritual and stuff. Mm-hmm. We're doing an episode on voodoo, and on my way home I hit 2 crow. Like, it was nuts.
Maybe we should have gone with a less offensive voodoo film, like Weekend at Bernie's 2.
Maybe, but I'm not sure. I think maybe if it's anything, it's a warning, because I think that we're treating this with the respect voodoo deserves. I mean, we both picked 2 very exploitive movies, but we're treating it like, I'm definitely saying that the movies got voodoo wrong. So I think we're good, but yeah,
I think your movie's probably closer than mine is.
Could be. Yeah, oh no, for sure. But we'll get to that. I actually have a whole section on that.
All right.
Anyways, so that was my crow story.
Well, for any voodoo practitioners out there who have traveled back in time and cursed Corey's car,
or me myself.
Thank you for not cursing me.
How do you know?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it just may not have reached you yet, Maddie. You're like halfway across the country from me.
Did you just hear drum beat?
That's just my terrible lack of rhythm on my desk, guys. I am so clever. All right. Back to Horror Pack.
Let's pick our way out of this forest we have climbed through and back to the path, the road. Put the train back on the rails.
All right. So, Horror Pack this month. As I'm looking at it, I will answer your first question, Maddie. Yes, it was worth it for another month. I will be keeping my subscription.
Cool.
Not super worth it, I don't think, but still worth it. We'll get to that. First up, I got The Right, starring Anthony Hopkins.
Ooh.
Which
I remember that movie.
Wait, have you seen it?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I don't really remember. I remember not hating it, and I remember feeling a bit uneasy during it, but like, it's pretty standard Exorcist gets possessed storyline, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that one. So, sort of worth it.
I think you can, even if you can fault an Anthony Hopkins film, you can't ever fault Anthony Hopkins himself. He's a good actor.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up, I'm cautiously curious about. It's called Silent House.
What an
It's-
inspired title.
Yeah, right? It's supposedly inspired by true events. Let's see what the back says here. When Sarah finds herself sealed inside her family's secluded lake house with no contact to the outside world, panic soon turns to terror as events become increasingly ominous. That tells us absolutely nothing about what this movie's about.
Scary things happen when this girl goes into this haunted house.
People move to lake house, bad things occur. So there, that's that. All right, so this one I'm a little curious about. Have you seen Neon Demon? Or at least the cover art for Neon Demon?
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, well this movie is the horror pack limited edition. We always get a limited edition. Well, almost always. The cover for this one is definitely like trying to capitalize on the Neon Demon cover. It's got the whole sort of blue to red sort of fading effect. Yeah, just very similar to the cover of that DVD.
Follows the rule that if one mainstream film does it right, then a million will follow.
Exactly. It's called Psycho Killer, starring Malcolm McDowell and Kate Daly. I'm not really sure who Kate Daly is.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Psycho Killer. You brought that on yourself. So this one I'm sort of excited about because Malcolm McDowell's in it. How can't you be? And
I love Malcolm McDowell. Oh my god.
Yeah, me too. The summary is okay too. A doe-eyed, knife-wielding killer is on the loose in a small town, slicing and dicing men of questionable intent. So all of them.
Doe-eyed? That's an interesting word to apply to a killer.
I know. Well, I mean, if you saw the cover, she's definitely she looks young. Yeah, I have a feeling this movie might have some adult themes in it that are going to make me a little uncomfortable and grossed out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, as her brutality leaves a town littered with corpses, her unquenchable bloodlust is lost on her young lover. Love is blind as he pursues her regardless of the obvious warning signs of psychosis. Will he meet his end at the end of her blade? So, Psycho Killer.
Sounds like a drinking movie.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, for me, all movies are drinking movies. And finally, the reason I am keeping it for another month is they sent me Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, just DVD or...
No, Blu-ray.
Oh, cool. Well, that's a movie worth getting on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I agree. When I was an edgy fishnet-wearing teenager, this was one of my favorite movies. I used to watch it every morning after sleepovers.
My mom has had a contentious relationship with this film because before she was a theater teacher, she was a costumer, and some costumes in this were absolutely fantastic and accurate, especially the wedding dress. Mm-hmm. It was based off of a famous portrait, I believe a Spanish portrait. But then the red dress Lucy wears in the garden is so dated and early 90s, late 80s and completely not Victorian at all that I remember every time we'd watch it, she'd just go, ah, whenever she saw it.
I actually don't think I've seen this since my knowledge on period costuming has grown, so I'm curious to see how I feel about that. Special features. We all know what this is about, so I'm not even going to mention it. 30 minutes of deleted scenes, Francis Ford Coppola commentary, a making of. I've been really into making of featurettes lately. Here you go. Here's one for your mom. There is a special feature called The Costumes Are the Sets.
Oh.
Yeah, so maybe it's somebody crying about that specific outfit, and it'll justify your mom's hatred and anger.
I believe this film actually won awards for its costumes.
Yeah, I think it did too.
Yeah.
And then some method and madness visualizing Dracula. But yeah, that is March's horror pack.
And what a great horror pack it was.
Yeah, I'm kind of stoked. I really need to, before we started a podcast about horror movies, I had time to actually watch horror movies. I miss those days.
Now you spend all your time studying horror movies.
Yeah, exactly. Between watching movies, studying the things in the background, and then making music, I just don't have to. I haven't even played video games, and I was a pretty giant gamer before all this started. I'm happy about all that, though. I'm productive and having fun, so it's all good.
Moving on. I guess it's time to finally get into the movies. This has taken us, 3 weeks now?
Yeah, pretty close to it.
Yeah, this Yeah, this has been a bit of a challenging episode due to personal things, including allergies and dead birds, apparently.
Yeah, and depth of content, too. Honestly, this was... I still don't think we've scratched the surface. I think that we could have done a two-parter on Voodoo and still not done it justice.
Exactly. Maybe sometime in the future we'll come back to the topic and do an actual historical analysis. But for the time being, let's just get into the movies.
Supernatural voodoo woman does a thing at night. Supernatural voodoo woman.
A Sugar Hill from 1974 is a tale of love, revenge, hate, and blatant over-the-top racists who were only missing the mint juleps and paper fans to complete their ensemble.
But the racism is so casual on both sides. I'll get to this later. I just had to say that as well. Everybody's so okay with being racist jerks in this movie. Black, white, they're all racist.
Yeah, they're all very aware they're in a blaxploitation film, and they love it. They chew the scenery.
For sure.
So basically turn Dr. Fives into a beautiful, proud black woman, and you got Sugar Hill. Diana Sugar Hill is an intelligent woman engaged to Langston, a club owner who refuses to sell a remarkably antebellum mob boss named Morgan. Langston gets murdered, and Diana seeks revenge through her former mentor and possibly mother. I'm not quite sure if it's a respectful term she uses for her or if it's actually her mom.
I read it as mother.
Yeah,
I read it as mother.
Yeah, I can believe that. It would explain why they're so close.
And why they both combined had the power to raise Samedi, essentially. But
yeah,
we'll
exactly. The voodoo queen, Mama Mistress. She strikes a deal with the Lord of the Dead, Baron Samedi, and offers her soul to take out each and every single person responsible for Langston's murder. Then there's also a cop she used to date occasionally popping up to investigate the weird murders in typical 1970s style.
Officer Valentine.
Exactly, and what a romantic name that is.
Oh, you have no idea. But you will soon.
Yeah, it seemed like they were playing with the idea of kind of trying to say, okay, she loves Officer Valentine, but also no, she loves Langston.
Yeah. There were some drop threads in this film, but
yeah, exactly. And the movie has a very inspired tagline. Would you like to hear it?
I would like to hear it.
The mob didn't expect Sugar Hill and her zombie hitmen. That's the actual tagline.
That's awesome. Those zombies were creepy too.
Oh, they were fantastic. I've never seen the makeup quite like that on a movie, like for zombies specifically, especially the eyes.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they did that as sort of the coins on the eyes sort of thing. I wonder if that was some sort of weird shout out to that.
I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I think for what it was, it did work. Mm-hmm. I mean, on a spectacularly low budget. And now I will admit that in HD, I think the makeup and stuff did kind of suffer. I do think this would be best viewed on VHS if you could watch it. I think the graininess of an older film would make it more impressive. It's almost too polished as a restored film, in my opinion.
Yeah,
kind of like,
see that.
Yeah, kind of like how if you watch a Disney restoration like Snow White, the outlines are like too thinned out, so it's pretty but less distinctive.
HD kind of screwed up a lot of films, especially early HD applied to films in early HD. It just looks terrible. But this one wasn't as bad as other films, though.
Not as bad, no, because HD normally messes with frame rate.
Right.
And there's a reason certain films are in certain frame rates. That's why you can watch like an 80s or 90s film in HD, and it looks like a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
Because they changed the frame rate. The dialogue delivery is hit and miss in this movie. Like, there's some actual good actors, like the actress who plays Sugar Hill. And then there are some really bad actors, like pretty much every single henchman.
And the guys in onesies with suit jackets, they weren't the best actors on the planet.
And I did some research on the main actress, Marky Kay, who was in this, but she didn't really do a lot. She did mostly TV. Still, she's pretty cool.
I wonder if this movie was kind of setting her up, like, this was supposed to be her
breakout
ascension.
Role.
Yeah, this was supposed to be her ascension to Pam Grier status, and it just didn't come about. I don't know a whole lot about blaxploitation films. I haven't seen many other than like Dolomite and Blackula, that kind of thing. So
well, this actually came from the same company that did Blackula, American International Picture.
Okay.
I think it's a good model of blaxploitation, like Blackula and maybe Ganja and Hess if you count that, which I really don't because it's more art house, but I digress.
I haven't seen it.
So for what it's worth, this movie was shot with a budget of $350,000. So really low budget, Shot in Houston. They even used the Houston Public Library as the Voodoo Institute.
Oh, wow. It looked pretty good for a voodoo film shot in Houston. Like, it felt like... Well, I guess you're right. I guess Houston isn't super far away from Bayou Country, so...
Well, Bayou Country is in Louisiana, so I would say it is, but...
Yeah, but don't you guys kind of border that? Again, my geography is failing me.
Still a few hours drive.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, I'm terrible at geography, too, so...
Yeah, there's just too much Texas, that's all I'm saying.
There's a lot of Texas. Sometimes Texas can be too much for you Yankees.
It's true. It's true.
So, one of my favorite elements of this film is the use of Baron Samedi. He's a legit mythological figure in Haitian voodoo. He's a Loa, Mystère Invisible, whatever term you want to use, one of the many intermediaries between God, the creator, and mankind. I think we touched on it earlier, but think of him like a menacing saint combined with a minor god, and you've got Baron Samedi.
Do you think he gets used so often because he is used this often in voodoo, or because he just looks the coolest?
I think it's because he's a major figure.
I don't know if there's any sort of chain of command in the Loa. Like, I don't know if there's more powerful. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's a sort of level to that. But you definitely see him more than most other Loa.
Well, that's actually a really good point, because without getting into too much detail, he's one of the 5 leaders of the Gaiden the spirits of the dead.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're not nice, they're not respectful, they're crude, loud, boisterous. So they really aren't saintly in any way. Baron Samedi... I think the best equivalent for him is like Sharon. He digs up the graves of the dead to greet their souls before leading them into the underworld. He's kind of like the leader of the Loa, and he commands more respect while also being far more charming, even though he smokes, drinks, chases women, makes vulgar jokes. He's the master of the dead, which is one reason they used him. And he can also cure any disease or ailment, and he can be persuaded to ensure that the dead do not rise again.
I like that. I like persuaded. I like the use of the term persuaded there, because it's true. Like, you got to make a deal with the dude. That's how he rolls.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed in this film that most other movies don't do when they're dealing with Baron Samedi is they kept Samedi.
Well, Samedi is the French word for Saturday.
So Baron Saturday? Mm-hmm. All right, so Baron Saturday. I really like that they, and I'm surprised I really like this, but I dig the fact that they didn't put the skull makeup on him that you see any other portrayal of Baron Samedi. You're going to see him in his... skull makeup. They didn't do that in this one, and I think that it was a good choice because it allowed this actor who is really, really good in this role.
Oh yeah, he's perfect.
To just make it his own rather than having to be this skull-faced lower god. He gets to do what he wants and makes this lower god his own. It's very well done. Anything with him on screen I love.
You know, if you really are concerned about crows attacking your Jeep, I would recommend making an offering to Baron Samedi. He enjoys coffee, peanuts, cigars and cigarettes, rum, and bread. So.
Do you think he'll be okay with bourbon? No, I have rum here. I'll leave him out some rum tonight.
I really want to know Diana's history before she got engaged to a club owner. I want to know her whole history with Voodoo before this. Sugar Hill prequel, I think, fanfic possibly. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. There's got to be some kind of thing there though. Obviously, if we are going with Mama is really Mama, that's really her mom. There must be something there. And you don't just get your Voodoo card because you're a Southern person and black. You know what I mean? For her to be able to do this and know where to go, she's got to know what's up. So
yeah, and plus they talk about their history together. She's it's like she implies that Sugar basically turned her back on this whatever it is that she grew up with, and frankly she's kind of good at it, so she's got to know something.
Yeah,
I feel like the movie, other than actually seeing Baron Samedi, I don't think it went into much actual voodoo detail. Everything was pretty vague. Even the Voodoo Institute was pretty vague. When they analyzed the chains or whatever, they were like, oh yeah, these were on slaves in Guinea. That was the extent of what they went into.
I feel like a little bit of effort went into that opening scene though that turned out to just be voodoo theater at the club.
Yeah,
that
really
definitely fun. Yeah, that definitely felt like at least authentic dancing in that scene. I don't know if it was authentic ritual, but it definitely felt like authentic dancing in that scene.
Yeah, I found myself kind of singing that line over and over again at work the whole week after I watched this.
What, the Voodoo Woman line?
Yeah. Supernatural Voodoo Woman.
A lot more singing lately.
Yeah. Did you notice how many hair and costume changes Diana had?
Yeah, and did you notice that most of them were onesies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a note about that. Let me find it real quick. Oh, here it is. Do you think she went out shopping for all those murder onesies that she wears, or were they already in her wardrobe? Because she's got a bunch.
Well, Langston did own a club.
Oh, that's true. So you think all the murder onesies just already existed?
Yeah, she's just always ready for a night on the town.
Yeah, I don't know. If I was about to go out on a voodoo-inspired gang war of vengeance, I would buy a new outfit or two.
You'd get several leisure suits for the occasion?
Probably.
I think the ending implied that there was possibly like some sequel material, you know? It seemed to imply that maybe Sugar would call on the Baron again because she had other enemies, but who knows if they actively planned that out or not.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely implied that something terrible was going to happen to that poor woman that Diane just traded at the end of the movie. That was cold. Nobody deserves what she's got coming, man.
Yeah, I mean, she was a radical, like, racist, biatch, but she didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, but everybody, that's what I'm saying. Everybody in this movie was racist. Like, I made a list of all the racial slurs. But, listeners, if I even mention anything close to that, Maddie's going to censor me because she wouldn't let me talk about crossed arrows last episode. But we won't get into the 2001 Maniac Field of Screams issues. Although I was censored. But no, really, everybody in this movie was racist. It's insane. And everybody was just so casually cool with everybody else hating on each other. It was so strange. I guess I just don't understand this. Yeah, I guess I just don't understand the 70s. I will say that I never once heard the term cracker.
I don't think I did either.
Nope, everything else was there. I have a list, just not cracker.
Did they use the word honky at all?
Many times, in a few forms, too. Honk, honky. Yeah, it was there.
So, do you have any other things to add on, other than how snazzy that title song was?
Yeah, I've got a few things. So, in the beginning, before the movie even started, like I said, I watched this on my regular cable streaming. And in the ratings for the movie, they pointed out, like, one of the ratings, you know how you have, like, nudity, foul language? This one had girl fight. It actually said that there was going to be a girl fight, which to me, having that involved in your rating system seems a little archaic and maybe sexist, but yeah, that was there.
It was kind of a girl fight. There was a lot of hair pulling.
Oh, lots of hair pulling, lots of backhanding, and then she just straight busted a bottle on her face. That was awesome.
But they both looked fabulous doing it.
They did. They both look great in their murder onesies. Well, I think she had a murder onesie. She had a dress on. Yeah. Anyway, we touched on the theme song. That thing's great. You guys heard that at the beginning, the opening of this piece. The opening ritual was awesome. I mentioned that too.
At first you think it's actually a voodoo ritual, and then towards the end you realize it's a performance. I loved that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty great. And it was done so well because I was convinced that this was opening up the movie to just straight start in some sort of voodoo situation, but then it
was almost tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, it was really cool. Oh, okay.
I do feel like Officer Valentine was almost entirely useless except for exposition in this film.
Yeah, Officer Valentine was, and I think it's unfortunate because his name was Officer Valentine and he was very smooth with the ladies. I think if he was given a little more screen time, we would have actually located Scott Valentine's black brother from another mother.
Oh my gosh. Corey, just go on.
No, I'm just saying I think that guy has Scott Valentine potential. He was pretty smooth.
If Scott Valentine had been involved, there would have been no murders in this film at all.
No, it would just been happiness and love. I don't know. I got no idea. I got nothing. All right, so back to the ritual real quick. I loved that they spent so much time in the actual ritual. That was a really long part of the film when the dead slaves were coming back to life. Mm-hmm. And I like that we got to just sit and watch this entire ritual because it really made you feel like something's going to happen, like these guys are going to get what's coming to them. I really dug that. And
you very rarely these days see the trope with things crawling out of the grave anymore. That was one I love that when that's in a horror film.
Yeah, me too. It makes and it made sense in this too because a bunch of slaves aren't going to be buried in coffins, and if they are, they're going to be buried in coffins that were rotted away years and years before this happened. So they actually would be able to crawl out of graves. I think that's a lot of reason why we don't see it as often anymore is because there's definitely been a step towards realism with that.
An honorable mention towards the massage parlor scene in this movie when all those zombie girls were clawing that guy's back. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah, that was pretty great. Speaking of hilarious, Maddie, did I watch a dude get attacked by a chicken foot?
It is possible that you may have.
Did it just bounce over to that dude and pounce on him?
That could have been partial. I would like to blame that on your drugged haze when you were watching this film
Yeah, it
from
could
your
be, but
cold and flu meds, but that did happen.
Dude, he had to roll around on the floor with a little chicken foot puppet. It was amazing. That was
Yeah,
one
and
of
he
my
was
favorite
supposed to
parts
be
of the
one of
movie.
the toughest guys in the film, so that was hilarious.
And he got schooled. Well, he didn't get schooled by a chicken foot because he did stomp it and run off. But yeah, the chicken foot was great.
I will say, though, that if a dead chicken's foot was attacking you, you'd probably freak out, so.
I probably would, but I don't think it would get me down on the floor. I think I could stay standing. Listeners, if you know anybody with an enchanted chicken's foot, I would like to challenge it to a fight.
Who do you think would win, a disembodied moving hand or a disembodied moving chicken foot?
Oh, hand, for sure. Or are we just going to end it with those? That's all we have to say about it.
Supernatural voodoo woman does a thing at night. Supernatural voodoo woman.
Now, your film that you picked was a little bit more serious fare than mine was.
Yeah, that's kind of because of where it came from. It's based on a true story.
Well, based on a true story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I was doing, the finger. What are those called? Quotation mark fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing that. Just so you know.
So my movie was Serpent and the Rainbow.
Don't let them bury me. I'm not dead.
In the legends of Voodoo, the serpent is a symbol of earth. The rainbow is a symbol of heaven. Between the two, all creatures must live and die. But because he has a soul, man can be trapped in a terrible place where death is only the beginning. That's how this movie opens, based on a true story. So,
gotta give that at the end of every little statement here.
Exactly. So The Serpent and the Rainbow is yet another movie about white people intruding on another culture for their own gains and being punished severely for it.
And by white people, you mean Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman, essentially, and Big Pharma. But yeah, mostly Bill Pullman. So Bill Pullman plays a pretentious Harvard scientist who travels to Haiti to research a potion that supposedly brings back the dead, only to have his scientific and spiritual beliefs challenged as he gets caught in a spiritual war during the unrest in 1980s Haiti. After a catastrophic first trip in which he was given drugs which lead to terrifying hallucinations, or are they visions, of being buried alive. Then finding his helicopter dead, he follows his newly acquired spirit animal, a jaguar, who leads him 200 miles out of the jungle. Dr. Dennis Allen, like I said, played by Bill Pullman, returns to Boston with rare medicine and herbs given to him by a voodoo priest.
Must be nice to take drug trips for your job.
I know, seriously. And how do you get to just bring shit? Well, I guess it was, again, the 80s. You could just bring drugs on planes, I guess.
If you were Bill Pullman, you could.
So, of course, as soon as the pharmaceutical companies hear about this, they fund a trip to send him back in search of a man who they think has been resurrected using a potion they would very much like to get their hands on. In another movie, this would be the beginning of the apocalypse, but not here. This is just the beginning of an adventure.
I found the narrative of especially the opening of the film, to be a little strange, a little fragmented.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they did that because it was a similar experience as what the author of the book, which is the actual story, had. Granted, the dude didn't get led out of the jungle by a jaguar or anything. I don't think it is. I think that the author just went there and, well, we'll get to what the author did. I think they just threw that in there as sort of an excuse to, like, look, I found this thing, so now I have to go back to find this other thing.
Well, I did wonder about it because, the original cut was 3 hours.
Wow, really?
Yeah, even Wes Craven apparently thought it was too long. He was quoted as saying something along the lines of, "This movie's too talky, I'm going to have to cut some stuff out." And it ended up being like a little over 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, it was something like that. Wes Craven actually has a few issues with this movie. I think I get to those later, too.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, during the course of this adventure, and it really is more of an adventure movie with horror elements than a true horror movie.
Yeah.
He meets a man named Louis Mozart, played by Brett Jennings.
I think Mozart is like my favorite character in this film.
Yeah, he was great. I like that he's set up to be this shady
con artist.
Yeah, you don't know if he's gonna screw you over or cut your head off with a machete, but he actually turns out to just want to be remembered. I really like. Yeah, he had one of the more interesting character arcs in this film. Anyway, Mozart is willing to sell Dr. Allen this zombie drug, which alerts the local corrupt general who also happens to be an evil voodoo priest.
Of course.
And I'm going to screw up these names, Maddie. And your knowledge of French language, you're going to have to help me. So the voodoo priest's name is D'Argent Petro.
D'Argent Petro.
All right, so D'Argent Petro, played by Zakis Moquet. I think I got that almost right. Anyway, he is none too pleased to find this Western scientist searching to unearth his secrets. Can Kathy Tyson as the beautiful Dr. Marielle Duchamp and the good voodoo priest Lucien Celine, played by Paul Winfield, save him? More importantly, will he be able to have children later in life? But more on that in a bit.
I didn't especially love this film, but I appreciated what they were trying to do. It didn't feel like a Wes Craven movie to me, though.
No, and it wasn't supposed to be. That's one of the craziest things about this. As far as I understand it, Wes didn't set out to make a horror movie. He wanted to break out of the genre in this, and that's how he got involved with this author.
I would like to briefly touch on the zombie powder they made when they made it. Mm-hmm. In the book, they actually had to crush a dead baby's skull. I'm really glad that in the movie they'd used an adult skull instead.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have been like, that's it, I'm out. And probably turned it off.
So Wade Davis, the writer of the book, he was the one that experienced the actual true story. He was sent there to investigate an actual case of zombification. They were looking for a material explanation for what the locals thought was magic. And it turns out they did find something. This substance that comes from a pufferfish, tetrodotoxin, is a neurotoxin derived from said pufferfish, which brings about a death-like state. And they hoped that by studying the full preparation of the potion, they could find a viable use for it in the drug industry. But they found that it was so toxic that it wasn't a very usable medical substance. About the amount that would fit on the size of a pinhead could kill a living human. These days, it's been experimented with a little bit more. I imagine that has a lot to do with the advances in medical technology over the last 30 years since the movie came out. It's been experimented with in treatment of cancer-associated pain, and it demonstrates significant relief in some patients. It may help people suffering from severe migraines and headaches associated with heroin withdrawal, interestingly enough. Yeah, the true story of this is actually a little more interesting and may have led to actually going into the jungles of Haiti and looking for zombies. It may actually lead to some good medical advances in the next few years, which I thought was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like the idea that the cure for every disease on the planet is somehow hidden in the rainforest.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with every cure being hidden in the rainforest, but I think every cure to every disease is hidden somewhere on the planet.
No, I don't believe they're all hidden in the rainforest. That's just a philosophy that a lot of people seem to have.
Yeah, there was a movie based on that. I don't remember what it's called. It was like somebody found the cure for cancer, and then loggers.
It was Anthony Hopkins. Yeah.
All right. So when I first started watching this, and this is where you had said that you didn't really like this movie, and this is where I think I can convince you that you don't have to like it to appreciate it if you haven't already gone.
No, I agree with that. You don't have to like it to appreciate it.
Okay. Because I don't like the movie. I don't like the last act of the movie at all. So Dr. Allen annoyed the hell out of me in the beginning of this film. He comes off as very pretentious, saying things like, Harvard thanks you, to the voodoo priest giving him the medicine.
He made me think of those people like fresh out of college that just think they know the world, that they think they know everything, and they're so much more civilized than anyone in any tribe could possibly be because they don't wear button-up shirts.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose. In fact, I know they did it on purpose. They wanted to show just how out of his element this Western scientist was, and how much he didn't know about the culture he was attempting to exploit for the pharmaceutical companies. Pullman even mentions this in an interview, saying something like, "This is a bunch of white guys making a movie about a white guy visiting this completely foreign culture and realizing he knows absolutely nothing. Even though he's well-educated, he's in their world, forced to play by their rules, which are completely different to Western rules." I mean, even if you take out the voodoo, the fact that the unrest in Haiti at that time was so violent, they started filming on location in Haiti. But it got too dangerous because they're in the middle of... It wasn't really a revolution, that's why I keep saying unrest, but there were voodoo temples being burned at the time, like all sorts of...
It was a dangerous time.
It was a very dangerous time there. there. It still is in a lot of ways. So yeah, they moved
didn't they have to
filming-
finish in the Dominican Republic?
Yeah, they finished in the Dominican Republic.
The buildings are gorgeous, though. The buildings that they filmed around.
Yeah, for sure. The fact that it was filmed on location in Haiti that's what made the movie for me. There's amazing shots in this movie. The pilgrimage to the waterfall, that's an actual thing, number one. They paid 3,000 extras to reenact this pilgrimage of healing, which is a yearly pilgrimage to and I'm going to butcher this, Maddie, the Saut d'Eau, it's SAUTD''EAU.
Okay, can you spell that again?
SAUTD''EAU.
Oh, Sodo.
Which is a yearly pilgrimage to the Saut d'Eau waterfalls, where the Virgin Mary, or Erzulie d'Antor as she's known in Voodoo, appeared on a palm tree in the mid-1800s. So you've got 3,000 paid extras walking to this waterfall. Mm-hmm. On their way, another 3,000 joined the trek, which made for an absolutely beautiful celebration of Haitian culture. What they started off recreating, they ended up just doing. They basically took this pilgrimage, and it's easily the best scene in the film. Today it would have been CG. It's very gorgeous. Today it would have been CGI and green screen, but here you've got the real people, actual practitioners doing what they would be doing on this trip. You know, going into trances, dancing, swimming in these healing waters. It's just such a great scene, and it just shows a side of a people and a religion that we never get to see because we've been taught with all these movies like Sugar Hill and even this movie to fear voodoo because it's evil, when it's really not. It's just another way of worshiping the unknown and trying to understand yourself and the environment.
And, you know, even aside from this gorgeous scene, I loved just the general performances and the street art in this film. They seemed legit, like not just staged. They felt really organic.
They were legit. A lot of the extra, especially in the ritual scenes, were actual voodoo practitioners. When you see scenes of a woman eating glass or a man getting needles shoved through his face, those are actual voodoo worshippers in trances, possessed by their spirits, going through what they go through. Like that was totally real.
Mm-hmm. Those were some of the best parts.
The fact that they spent so much time showing actual practitioners doing things they actually do almost makes up for the fact that they completely misrepresented voodoo by the end of the film in a lot of ways.
Yeah. There's one note I have here that's a little far to the side, but after his torture sequence, when he goes to the beach house, I just have to say this. When I heard him say this line, I kind of filled in the rest in the subtext on my own, but it says, but as sweet as Marielle was, the day and night at the beach house lasted a lifetime, ... You know, because I could, that jerk stabbed my balls.
See, I wasn't going to touch on the balls part, but since you brought it up, Maddie, I have a question for you. How does one continue on in his life with the knowledge that an 8-inch gutter nail was at one point hammered through his scrotum? How do you come back from that, Maddie?
Why are you asking me when I don't have them?
Good point. And I didn't want to assume your gender. We haven't really covered that.
I feel like it would be easier for you to answer that question.
Honestly, I don't know. I think about it sometimes. I think about this. I probably think about that scene every few months since the first time I watched it. Like, all of a sudden, it'll just pop into my head and be like, oh my god, I can't believe how terrible it would be to have my balls nailed to... I'm sorry, not my balls, my scrotum nailed to a chair.
Well, when you're Bill Pullman, you've got a lot to shoulder. You've got a lot on your shoulders, whether it's, you know, nailed through the genitals or being president of the United States and getting murdered by aliens, you know?
Yeah, true. But the fact that that's what Petro chooses to scare Pullman's character out of the country. You know, there are a lot of ways to scare someone out of the country, but he went straight for gutter nail through manhood. You know, that's
for most people, it would have been effective.
Exactly. I would not have gone back after that happened. Like, that would be it for me.
I would have liked to apologize for this blue language, by the way, listeners.
Blue language?
Blue, yes.
I've never heard that term.
Oh, it's an old term usually that used to refer to like pornographic films.
Oh, okay. We've kept it pretty scientific, though. I'm proud of us. It's not like you're scolding me for crossed arrows or anything.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about crossed arrows, or I will cut it out.
I'm the one cutting this episode.
Yeah, well, I'm the one who hosts the podcast.
You'll double cut it out. Anyway, so this is another great example of a strong female lead. Although Alan does go back to save her, She holds her own throughout the whole movie and the final battle. She even laughs at him at one point because he's startled by grave robbers, which is another one of my favorite scenes in the movie. They're looking for the Haitian zombie man that he went there to find on his second trip, and they're in this graveyard, and these grave robbers, who are just as afraid of them, take off running, and Bill Pullman's character nearly has a heart attack, and she just laughs at him because this is something, it's so foreign to him. But for her, this kind of thing happens all the time. She's like, oh, ha, 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 those are just grave robbers. You're being a sissy. I love that.
Of course, I'd be a little concerned about living in a place where I could be so casual about that.
Yeah, true. It would be pretty scary. Most of this movie is more of an adventure, like I said, than it is a horror movie. There are elements throughout, but it really doesn't go full horror until the end of the film, the last act, when he returns to Haiti for a third time.
Yeah, and we meet the true villain of the film, that chair.
Oh, yeah, that chair really was prominently featured. And I guess that would be a good way to heal from that. Anyhow, I would say that this last act is the least successful part of the film.
Yeah.
And I think the author, well, I've heard the author agrees with me too. The effects are pretty rough as well in this part. Generally, and I have more on this too, but generally the effects are pretty good, except for when the spirits start coming out of the jars. It's kind of a cheesier version of those found in Poltergeist. Mm-hmm. And especially when he, like, summons the power of the Jaguar.
Oh my gosh, that had got to be the lamest part.
It's awful. This is a whole bunch of colored smoke flying around and
I just thought
translucent images of voodoo priests and jaguars.
Yeah, so this white guy, his spirit animal is a jaguar.
Yeah, you figure if a white guy's going to have a spirit animal of a jaguar, it should at least be the car.
Yeah.
Especially a Western white dude.
Yeah. I was honestly... going back to it, I was contemplating turning this movie off, honestly, before the coffin filled with blood. There is a lot of talking in this movie, and I love talky movies. Mm-hmm. I will watch an Ingmar Bergman movie like 5 times, but at least it managed to keep my interest with these wild drug trip moments. So.
Yeah, it's the wild drug trip moments were cool. The scene with him in the coffin was cool. But the thing that kept me interested was just seeing Haiti and seeing the architecture and the jungle, all of that stuff. The book was less about voodoo and more about a culture trying to balance themselves with their spirituality. The studios insisted on the horror elements.
They did feel tacked on. Yeah,
they really did. And they kind of were, because apparently Wes Craven was like, I want to make this movie. And they were like, no, you're known for this kind of movie, so make this kind of movie. And he kind of did his best, I guess.
Unfortunately, that made this a perfect example of kind of a movie that didn't know what it wanted to be.
No, yeah, that's very, very true. At least Sugar Hill knows what it wants to be. I said that like obviously. I didn't enjoy Sugar Hill, but I really did enjoy Sugar Hill. Although I do still have a problem with movies like this and Sugar Hill completely skewing a culture to what voodoo really is. Mm-hmm. Like, voodoo at one point in America reached the same level as, like, Satanic Panic did or Stranger Danger. Like, they just see this religion as people sacrificing animals and cursing other people.
I kind of blame Law and Order.
Yeah. Law and Order can be blamed for most of, actually, a lot of things relating to cultural understanding. Same thing with voodoo dolls. Like, voodoo dolls are seen as these things where you get something personal from a person, put it in a doll, stab it, and it hurts the person. Voodoo dolls traditionally were more of a healing thing. They were meant to help people. They weren't meant to curse people. Now people are afraid of these tattered little dolls. It's so strange.
I have 2 cute little voodoo dolls on my DVD shelf behind me that my friends grabbed for me when they went to New Orleans.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I actually did not buy voodoo dolls when I went to New Orleans. I do have a little plaster skull I bought at Marie Laveau's shop, though, which is pretty dope.
I think my favorite souvenir is this alligator arm necklace.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So Wes Craven's theme of dreams being invaded is continued here with most of his movies. He always does this kind of dreamlike thing.
He loved the human psyche, clearly.
Yeah. And this is another question I have, though. At one point, does Dr. Allen realize that his dreams are really visions, and when will he start heeding them? Like, he knows he knows that Petro is the guy from his dreams, so he knows his dreams are starting to warn him. So I feel like he'd be a little, and I know that if he was more careful, there'd be less movie, but like, at some point you got to start making good decisions. You got to realize that there's something more going on than you can understand here.
Well, it's kind of what Siskel and Ebert called the idiot plot, where every problem in the film would be solved if everybody wasn't an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
No offense, Mr. Pullman. I respect you as an actor and a professional.
The cast and crew actually met a woman who was zombified.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she was physically and mentally very damaged, but she was still alive. They found her, I believe she had died a year earlier. Well, she had died, and then a year later, she was found wandering around the village, and she was still alive at the time of filming and undergoing rehabilitation, and apparently improving to a point. I imagine.
Sounds to me like zombification is really a term for PTSD.
I don't. Yeah, that's definitely how they were kind of playing it in this movie a little bit. It was sort of it was half magic, half PTSD. I think it would probably be PTSD for waking up in the ground and having to claw your way out. But I think there's also probably brain damage there because number one, it's a neurotoxin. Number two, lack of oxygen to the brain. Yeah, I think there's a whole host of problems associated with this zombie drug. And PTSD is probably a pretty big one.
And unless you honestly experience it, you can't really know what exactly does go on with that stuff.
Another, and I think my final bit on this is a little bit about the effects. They did this in sort of a really interesting way. David Leroy Anderson was the special effects makeup artist, while his son Lance Anderson was the on-set artist. So David stayed in the States and would design the effects, and then he'd send them over to Haiti or the Dominican Republic with notes, and Lance would be in charge of implementing them, which occasionally meant that Wes Craven would want something that these props weren't meant to do. For example, the scene where Celine rips his own head off, that was totally an off-the-cuff effect. That head was originally only meant to be used in that previous scene where the scorpion crawled from his mouth. But on set, Wes Craven was like, you know what? I want this guy to rip his own head off. Lance, make it happen. So he had a body built for a shorter actor to be placed inside. He put some goo in the head and applied it in a pretty decent manner, I thought, for a reused prop. And they tore it off and away they went.
Well, you know, normally an accurate head cast of someone for film, normally, like, if you're hiring a good artist, it costs at least $10,000 to have one produced. So it could have just been, you know, wanting to use it for all it was worth.
Yeah, that would make sense too. Have you ever had your face cast?
Yeah, in high school.
It's terrifying.
I don't have claustrophobia. But it's certainly not comfortable.
I didn't think I did either. I don't think it was the claustrophobia. I think it was just a lack of control while I was under that stuff. The first time I panicked, I had to be brought out of it. It wasn't until the second time, a year later, that it actually worked. And I think I trusted the second person who casted my face a little more. That could have something to do with it as well.
I was going to say it might have something to do with, you know, if you trust the person, because people can really screw with you if they're making a cast of your face.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of cast, they actually cast a live snake in alginate in this movie. They had to drug it and cast it. It was for the scene where the zombie woman in the wedding gown, that was originally supposed to be a child, another on-set change Wes made. And I say Wes because we were best friends. That was originally supposed to be a child, but Wes had, for whatever reason, decided to turn it into an old lady. So Lance had to old ladyify it in Haiti.
I think I like it more that way.
I think I do too.
Well, it also helps keep us away from the idea of them crushing a child or a baby's skull for the spell too, because that was the same body in the vision.
So they used a real snake for the attack in that scene. What they did was they cast the snake in alginate, like I said, and they made sort of a snakehead sock. So the part you see attacking Pullman is actually a puppet that was attached to the real snake. So he was controlling the puppet over to his chin and throat with his own hand, and the other half that was coming out of the woman's mouth was actually the snake, the actual living snake. So when he pulled it out and fell over, the back half and slithering, I thought that was great. It wasn't puppetry, but it was an actual snake just wiggling around there.
It looked great.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that they wouldn't be able to do today like that. Like, there's no way you get an A-list actor. I mean, this was Pullman's first movie. But
Yeah.
or first leading role, but there's no way you get an A-list actor rolling around with a snake. You don't have an A-list actor for sure rolling around with an actual jaguar, which is what they did in the beginning of this movie. That was actually Bill Pullman messing around with a jungle cat, man. There's no way that an actor would be able to have his hands set on fire today, or a tarantula crawling all over him. I don't think, and I'm not sure, but Maddie, do you think that they actually drugged that goat?
Given how the goat behaved, they either drugged it or they had a fainting goat for the scene, but seems like it would have been a hassle to find specifically a fainting goat, so.
Yeah, he looked pretty wasted, Maddie. I'm pretty sure they drugged that goat.
They didn't give you a disclaimer about animals in it, did they?
I'm sure they did, but I didn't look at it. I'll go back and look when I pull the audio and see what I can find. But yeah, so that is my piece on Serpent in the Rainbow, my friends.
So, two very different films.
Yeah.
One of them taking it more seriously, the other having a little bit more fun, both of them kind of flying off the cuff, but definitely worth checking out at least once.
Yeah, and I only touched upon it, but I do recommend anybody listening to this to look into the author's, I'll say his name again, research the author Wade Davis and his experiences in Haiti at the time. It's a really interesting story. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm definitely going to based on the things I've learned. There's so much more that happened that I just don't have time to cover here. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. You'll learn a lot about a culture that a lot of people just don't understand.
As usual, guys, if you'd like to check out the blog, you can check it out at Hallow-Holic.blogspot.com, or you can check it out on the mirror site, Hallow-Holic.wordpress.com.
Or you can find us on Twitter at Hallow-Holics at Nowhere23.
And you can also email us if you'd like to. We love emails. We love shout-outs, even a little audio clip, whatever you want to send us, provided it's appropriate. If it's not, you can tag Corey's name in the subject line. You can email us at Hallow-Holics@outlook.com.
You realize that telling them to tag me with all the inappropriate stuff is just going to get you tagged with all the inappropriate stuff, right?
Unless I have you screen just every single email.
That's a good point, boss.